Hello. Today we're going to learn how to write fractions in decimal notation. Now, as you know, fractions and decimals are the same thing. They both represent amounts that are less than a whole. Let's look at an example of a decimal. Let's say that this flat represents one whole. If it does, and it takes 10 of these rods to fill up a whole, we would say that this rod is worth 1/10 of the whole. We can write this in fraction form and in decimal form. And if it takes 100 of these cubes to fill up the whole, we would say this cube is worth 1/100th of the whole. We can write it as a fraction or as a decimal. Just as we have place values for whole numbers, we also have place values for decimals. Let's review place values for whole numbers. We read this number as 2,354. The 2 is in the thousands place, so this means that the digit 2 in this number equals 2,000. The 3 is in the hundreds place, so the number 3 has a value of 300. The 5 is in the tens place, so the digit 5 equals 50. And then we have the number 4, which is in the ones place, so the value of this digit is just 4. But what about fractions and decimals? Well, as I mentioned before, decimals have their own place value too. Here's a chart of the place value system with both whole numbers and decimals. Take a look at some of these decimal place values. What do you notice? You may have noticed that all the decimal place values end in THS. The decimal place values go in the same order as whole number place values, just in opposite directions. The one exception is that they start with tenths. There's no such thing as ones place value. Let's go back to building decimals. For this year, we will just work with tenths and hundredths place values. If we have this decimal, it represents 2/10 and 3/100. In order to read this decimal, we read the number that we see, 23, and then pronounce the last place value used. So this would be 23/100. This decimal only shows 5/10, so we read the 5 and say tenths because that is the last place value used. Let's try another one. For this decimal, we would use 3/10 and 1/100. We would read this as 31/100 because the hundreds is the last place value used. This one's a little more challenging. If you look at the place values, there are no tenths, so we would just write 0 for that place value. We have 300, so I would build that with just the hundreds. To read it, I do the same thing. Read the number first, which is 3, and then pronounce the place value. So this is read as 300, just like I would say the fraction 300. So let's review before you move